I'm starting off with this cherry that was milled up roughly 40 years ago. It's got a nice aged look to it. The strops are 3 inches wide and 6 inches long. I'm making a few of them, so I'm cutting my board at approximately 24 inches. I'm jointing one face and one edge to be able to take it over to the bandsaw and resaw it down to 1.5 inches thick. And then it's off to the planer to take it down to the final thickness of 1.25 inches. With everything else squared away, I take it down to 3 inches in width. I'm using a stop block at my miter gauge to get these repetitive 6-inch cuts. I'm using my combination square to find center on the bottom of these strops so that I can take it over to my drill press and use a Forstner bit to hog out some waste for the handles. The Forstner bit that I'm using is 7/8 in diameter. To help ease the edges down near where the handle is, I used a 3/8 inch roundover bit at the router table. Next up, I turn the handle. I have a 2-inch squared piece of cherry that's roughly 5 inches long. It's a little oversized. I have it chucked up into the lathe. Work on getting the tenon. The tenon is going to fit into the 7/8 inch hole that I drilled out in the strop. So work on that first, and then I like to form the actual handle part of it. The handle is 3.5 to 4 inches long. It's 4 inches if you include the tenon, 3.5 if you don't. I'm not a real experienced turner, so as you can tell, I don't have a whole lot to say about this whole process, other than it was trial and error. I kept going at it until I found something that I liked. And then now it's time to sand it. I sanded it with 120 all the way up to 400 grit sandpaper. And after each grit, I would stop the lathe and actually sand with the grain to help prevent any scratches. And now I just use my saw to cut away the handle from the waste. I have a flat, fine rasp that I use to remove that little notch that was left over, and then I hit it with 180 all the way up to 400 grit sandpaper. I had a little bit of excess in the front of the handle that I had to cut away as well. With everything pretty much done with the strop, other than putting the leather on, I went ahead and smoothed it with my number 4 hand plane. And to glue the handle on, I'm just using this bottle of hide glue that I've had sitting around for a while. And I also use the hide glue to actually glue down the leather, but you can use your regular yellow wood glue for the handle and for the leather. And speaking of leather, for these strops, I had some excess 8-ounce vegetable tan cowhide that I used for this project. After the glue dried, I came back and removed the excess leather, and that was no easy task using such thick leather. And for the finish, you're probably not going to be surprised. This is the same finish that I used on my last few projects. A coat of boiled linseed oil, followed by a couple coats of a de-waxed garnet shellac, except this time I used a hake brush to apply it. This is the same type of brush that Paul Seller uses in his videos, and I like the way that it works. It holds a lot of shellac, and they're really cheap brushes. I recommend picking one up off of Amazon and giving it a try. And now that it's done, I got to give it a try, so I charge it with this green compound, the buffing compound, and then sharpen the chisel a little bit. It works pretty well. Hope you guys like the project. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and hit the thumbs up button if you like the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel.